talking about what we can do to step out of this recession, both the physical, the mental, and the economical one. What do you think, Nydia, are the opportunities that the government is yielding, or the government decisions are leaving behind the way that we can tap on?
The entire world should assume how interdependent we all are, and therefore that the future of us depends on the survival in the future of everybody else, and how well everybody else does in the future will become a factor for also the quality of our surviving and overcoming this terrible episode of the pandemics. I'm with you, Vicente. One of the effects that we should be most concerned about as a result of these pandemics is the tremendous, the terrible, the increase of poverty, the unavoidable decrease of middle classes. It's really appalling and tremendous, no? I mean, we're going to go from the 61 million poor people that we have been facing in Mexico since 2012, more or less. The number has remained very stable ever since. We're going to move from there to somewhere between 77 and probably 81 million poor people, most of which will come from the depletion of the middle classes. We have to ask ourselves, what do these people will need to do? What will they need to do to be able to recover in the midterm? But just so that we have a viable future, mutual future, we must be able to renounce some of our expectations of income and opportunities and leisure and everything, so that an extended version of us is able to develop and face in a near future or distant future, and face with a stronger stand and the next crisis.
How do you feel about that, Vicente?
As an entrepreneur, I think I need to focus totally on how to improve the process as our company focus on the problem, and in the same time, how can we create opportunities for the people? How can we develop products and processes that helps the people to become middle class instead of being poor people? As Nydia says, we are going to have more than 80 million people on poverty. So we are really worried about that. And in the other hand, is how can we move medium class and high income people to think and to work to resolve the problem. So at the end, it's not only the decision of the government or the public policy. I think is that there is a commit. We need to develop a commit of the most of the people to say we need to resolve this problem. In our case, it's only how can we develop financial service to help the people. But we need to develop education process, health process, opportunity process.
I just wanted to add, it's because you have a very people-oriented company since the beginning, Vicente. I think, like Kubo Financiero was born with this philosophy. You haven't inherited this just from the pandemic.
The challenge is highest than we thought. But we are not afraid that. But at the same time, we don't have idea how to deal with that.
And right now, I think that it's an extraordinary thing and a very responsive way of thinking, and a very realistic response and vision to say, we don't know. We really have no idea how we are going to do this, but we are committed to it.
I think that one of the things that has helped Kubo Financiero companies alike to thrive in this crisis is that they're extremely aligned. And that before he thinks about his customers, he thinks about his people internally. So Kubo Financiero is not only purpose-driven, but it's people first, but their employees first. You all are on the same page, and they're really concerned about not becoming selfish and becoming more outward-oriented. How do you feel about that, Bob? Not only how to avoid becoming selfish, but how to align themselves in a fashion that can help them just to move forward. I mean, like, it's a radical alignment matter.
And so I think the gift of this time is that it allows us the opportunity to get back to what is essential. And to my mind, it is relationships that are the essential piece. And it also accelerates things. And there are two trends, which I think were happening before the pandemic, which are kind of opposite directions. One, in the macro level, we see a concentration of capital, we see a concentration of power, and we see a movement towards more right-wing politics and politics of exclusion, politics of insulation more and more. But at the same time, within companies, we're seeing this adoption of these more responsive models, these more human-centered models, these more human-centered ways of operating. And so I'm encouraged by both. And what we really need is we need models of decision-making which allow for more full participation from the people in the room, and to allow more different kinds of people in the room. This more altruistic idea, this idea that we're going to serve our customers, that we're going to serve people, is actually served by having different kinds of people come together and having all of their voices heard, that we're actually going to get better decisions, we're going to get more creative decisions, and we're going to get a sort of more inclusive stance and a more service-oriented stance inside of our companies. And I think that's desperately needed.
Nydia, what did you take away from this conversation? And not only as a takeaway, but more like advice for large organizations in terms of this alignment, the responsiveness, also, like, how can they tap on those opportunities we were talking about before?
One, if I had to single one thing out as an advice, as a general idea, is I think it's clear now that institutions and trust are the nuclei of prevention for crisis. Being able to acknowledge that we are all interdependent, being able to acknowledge that planning for the future costs. So we must pay for that cost. There is value in paying for the cost of preparing for a crisis, for the unexpected. No, all of that is part of the solution, I think. But we should not forget that we were at this point, and we should take the lesson and learn from it and plan for it.
That's very interesting. Like, coming from someone from Citibank, and with all that wealth of information that you share with so many people from government and different instances worldwide, I think that is a very human point of view. Thank you very much for being with us, Nydia.
It was a great exchange. Thank you for having me.
How do you feel about that, Bob? What would you say?
Well, it's very hard to follow what Nydia just said. I think I feel like she summed it up so well. I'm just going to go personal. Like, for me, I think what I've been returning to a lot is getting back to what's essential for me, and just feeling very in touch with all of these, I think, very real, very human things. And for me, it's having me realign almost all of my priorities. I always thought my priorities were pretty good, but now I'm even more getting down to kind of going back to what is essential. What does it mean to be human? What do I want out of life? Because we're all going to die, right? None of us gets out of this alive. And so what is it that we really want our lives to mean? And it's just been so inspiring to kind of sit with people who are, I think, putting things into action in such a real and such a tangible way. So anyway, that's all I've got. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I've learned a lot, and I feel like I've connected with people who, I don't know, who I share something with, like who I didn't know before. And so I really appreciate that.
Vicente, what are your takeaway or advice or reflections for our viewers tonight?
Luis, Paulina, Karin, Nydia, Blob, Vicente, we are in the less than 5% of the people who have the best opportunities. So that we need to do is how to focus our strengths, our work, our money, our time in order to give opportunities to other people. So at the end, that Kubo wants to do is how to help people through financial services, but it's not enough. That we need to do is how you trademark, how to trust in the other people.
It's very interesting how we thought that you guys were going to put on the table practical business-like points of view, advice, structures, and strategies or methodologies to tell organizations how to thrive in this new reality. However,
yes,
all of you at some point, well, all the time, started to talk about a human perspective, because Vicente's team challenge for tonight is not about how to make more money. It's about how to avoid becoming a selfish organization. So you guys are not talking about a purpose that is printed on neon on your wall. You guys are actually trying to change Mexico to grow a bigger middle-class base, but also to avoid doing that by becoming more ambitious or selfish for yourselves. On the other hand, Bob is talking about like how to seize the opportunity of watching every morning and every sunset also, and how to appreciate what you have, which is more like dancing under the rain, more than trying to thrive and become the largest organization that grows 10x as a fast company growth. And Nydia, instead of talking about buy bonds or try to buy some sort of financial tools, you're talking more about how to become more human among ourselves and how to become more related to each other and to community. And I think that's very interesting, because you guys are not millennials at all. You're not digital also. You come from very successful companies and backgrounds, the three of you. And yet you're talking about that the recipe is more about dancing under the water and seizing every day by sharing what you have right now, not because it's going to end soon, but because what we're being offered right now is a second opportunity to be more human, and being more human by being more related to each other. So thank you very much, because this struck me as a surprise.
And at the same time, I wanted to thank you all for bringing this vulnerable and very real part of yourselves, of your thinking. I think that this was actually the purpose of this initiative. Being able to talk with this extraordinary, successful business people, and at the same time bringing the real part of it and the real part of the conversation. And that's why we had food on the table, because and whiskey on the table, because that's the way conversations are going in every household around the world.
Guys, thank you so much for a wonderful evening and for wonderful food. Thanks, Amati. I loved the lasagna, and thank you guys for this amazing and unexpected Abasolo whiskey. I had never imagined you could taste such great whiskey from Mexico. So cheers to them. Thank you.